Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
I want to get our hands around a very difficult situation.
All right, Donald.
Hey, Joe,
Donald. You got to let us ask questions. You can't just talk. No, you got to let us actually ask questions. You're just talking. All Muslims. Donald. You're not going to keep talking. We will go to break if you keep talking. We're going to ask you questions.
All
right, go to break. Go to break, everybody. Go to break. Go to break right now. We'll be right back with more Morning Joe.
Yeah, note to moderators who actually want to moderate a debate that makes sense, stays organized, and keeps both candidates in line. That's one idea. Cut the mic and mean it. Good morning and welcome to Morning Joe. It is Wednesday, September 30th. Along with Joe, Willie, and me, we have MSNBC national affairs analyst, co-host of Showtime's The Circus, and executive editor of The Recount, John Heilman. Co-founder and CEO of Axios, Jim Vandehei. Politics and journalism professor at Morgan State University, politics editor at The Grio, and an MSNBC political contributor, Jason Johnson. And historian and Rogers Professor of the Presidency at Vanderbilt University, John Meacham, will join us in just a moment. Wow.
Yeah, it was something.
What was that?
Well, it was, again, what we've seen for 4 years. It was a president completely ignorant of or uncaring about the position that the United States has held on the world stage over the past 240 years, and also, Willie, ignorant or uncaring about the power of a president to send out a message to America that we are an exceptional country. I mean, you think about the fact that during the height of the Cold War, actually nearing its end, Ronald Reagan would talk about freedom in the Soviet Union, and dissidents locked in gulags thousands of miles away from freedom would find out about the American president's words, and they would tap in code what the president said while locked in their jail cells, and hope would spread throughout those gulags. That's what the American president's words are supposed to convey. Hope. We're supposed to be a city shining brightly on the hill for all the world to see, whether it's from Ronald Reagan or inspiration from John Kennedy or FDR or Lincoln talking about the last great hope for a dying world. That is what our presidents are supposed to appeal to. And last night, you had a president shaming himself, bringing shame to anybody who still supports him, and actually giving hope, to racist, anti-Semitic groups.
Stand back and stand
telling
by.
Them to stand back and telling them to stand by, sending messages to his supporters, telling them to disturb and disrupt voting. He's trying to threaten those who were going to try to vote peacefully. and also making such a mockery of American democracy by screaming and yelling during that debate and being completely unmoored emotionally, philosophically, intellectually, that, again, he has brought even greater shame to this country and has made the American democratic process look like a joke worldwide.
Well, we've worn these adjectives out over the last 5 years, but that was truly disgraceful. It was truly embarrassing. It was truly pathetic. It was truly chaotic. And I want to point out that clip that we bumped in with where you cut Donald Trump off. He was on the show in December of 2015 defending the proposed Muslim ban. That's why he couldn't answer a question that you were asking him, so we had to go to break. Last night, he was there defending indirectly the Proud Boys, telling them to stand back and stand by. The Proud Boys, a white supremacist group. Can you imagine an easier question to answer for anyone, but especially for a president of the United States than, Mr. President, will you condemn white supremacists? He couldn't do it. Reminded us of another campaign moment where he pretended he didn't know who David Duke was 4 years ago. He's given the chance. He won't do it. We know who he is. So there's the spectacle of this, and we'll talk about that, about how ugly it was, just as a representation of our politics, as a display to the world of who we are and where we are as a country. And then there was the strategy. Who exactly was he convincing last night to vote for him, other than his base who's not going anywhere? Who watched that? If there are undecided people, who watched that and thought, yes, I want more of that for 4 years? So we'll talk about who did well and who didn't, but how could you watch that and want more of that if you're still thinking about who to vote for?
Well, and listen, there's an entire network that is covering this debate as if it was a proud moment for the president. And this situation has gone too far with a bunch of lobotomized hosts and anchors who are just waiting for his phone call. And it's pathetic.
It is Wednesday, the 30th of September of 2020, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunnar the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef. And our daily special is Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Oh my! A lovely egg dish with an equally lovely hollandaise sauce. And also, will no one rid us of these meddlesome priests? And who are those meddlesome priests? Well, you know what? For now, maybe we'll just let the meddlesome priests be, and we should just merely stand back and stand by until the order is to, annihilate everything in your path. All right. I gotta say, one nice thing about Trump's appeal to his base, the Proud Boys, is don't kill people now. Stand back, stand by until you get the orders to kill your neighbors. Wow. So I don't have to worry about being killed while they're standing back and standing by. I guess when they come barreling through the door, that's when I'll know the orders have been given, won't I? Okay, well, what do we do to protect ourselves? I got to tell you, some people where I live, not necessarily in Rogue River proper, but here in Southern Oregon, are literally sending letters to their maggot neighbors asking them, are you going to kill me? I am serious. I'm your neighbor. When I say I'm serious, that's me saying I'm serious. They're not saying that I'm serious. Are you going to kill me? They should say it, though, because they are. There's some grave concern that if things go bad, and I mean go bad for Trump, when Trump gives the word, will they kill their neighbors? Are you going to kill me? That people are actually asking that of their, I call them maggots. Maybe I shouldn't be so derisive. Okay, they're Trump voting neighbors. And how can they tell that they're Trump voting neighbors? Well, one way is by how many Trump Pence 2020 signs are festooned on every part of their property. If you got a truck with 4 corners, man, they're going to make it into 6. 6 flags all around the truck. 4 corners of the bed's not enough. They got to go all the way to the front bumper, too. And sometimes they hold another one out the driver's side with their hand. And if they got a passenger, there's another one over there. Out. We're waving our American flags. And I am not going to give up the American flag to these idiots. You know, they got their 2020 Trump-Pence signs, and they've appropriated the flag as if it's theirs. No, I'm not going to cede the stars and stripes to these seditious bastards. Yeah. No. That what they are displaying is not patriotism, it's sedition. And if neighbors have to be so kind that they have to write a letter to their other neighbors asking, are you going to kill me after the election? I would say that things have gone terribly divisive, and there's one side that's responsible for it now, isn't it? Now, even in the beginning of the show here, when I have the recording of, well, mostly I've been doing Morning Joe because they have the latest. I like that. But even they could not help themselves from both siding this debate from last night. Mika had to she's not even aware that she said it. How do you keep both candidates in line? There was only one candidate to have to keep in line, and that was Donald Trump. Joe Biden's attempt to interrupt, every time he started, he stopped himself because he made an agreement. And when Trump kept going on and on and on and on, and then Biden finally said, shut up, man. That's supposed to be the equivalent of interrupting and talking out of turn, so both sides did it. Please. Now, some people on the right hate the idea of the conciliatory nature of a Biden. He's weak. I mean, they're going to say, I made a joke, and now I'm afraid it's true. They're going to blame Biden for, if he can't stand up to our bully, how is he going to be able to stop us when we want to nuke China? How is he going to stop us, huh? Well, I'll tell you how he's going to stop you. All right. Well, no, I'm not. Because we all know what could happen if that goes bad now, don't we? So, when Clinton won, Bill, what was one of the first, was it first? Yeah, I guess it was to a degree. All right. But what was a major statement that was made by the right-wing white supremacist to our multi-generational, multiracial, well, I don't know, they call us mud people, don't they? When we elected a mud person to be leader of the mud people, well, you got to bomb a federal building like in Oklahoma City, the Murrah building, right on top of a bunch of kids in daycare. And that was a big message. Do not F around with the right wing, because that is what they are capable of doing. Now, I'm trying to remember an Antifa action in the midst of all this for all these many decades. Yeah. Oh, Antifa's not an idea. It's real. Yeah, I know. You think all sorts of things are real. Q. My God. Actually, as an aside, let me say something about the danger of local media as captured by Sinclair and others. And that is, they normalize this weird conspiracy about child abductions, So there was this big, feel-good story about a mom who was just so perturbed by these kids being abducted at Walmart in Grants Pass. And I'm like, they have never had a kid or anybody abducted at the Walmart in Grants Pass. Now, they've had some idiot open-carry gun enthusiasts who have had some problems. Now, they did arrest some guy because security found him doing this stupid upskirt photography thing inside the store. But what these people are doing and this mom is doing, she's young, under 30. So I guess they're highly susceptible to the fear now, aren't they? Well, not just because she's under 30, but still. Too much TV, too much dealing with local brainwashing techniques as utilized by Q. Anyway, there is a actual problem with child trafficking and, abductions and kidnapping. But these conspiracy theorists get in the way. And why? Because the actions are, let's just throw a wide net. So they start taking pictures of people who they think looks like a child abductor. No, that's vigilantism. Let's have the cops do the job. All right. And so the local newspaper here had that feel-good story. Oh, this mom, she's taken this news, this terrible news of child abductions, and she's doing something good about it. No, she's succumbing to the brainwashing, and now people are taking matters into their own hands. Oh, that person looks like a child abductor, and I bet they're all, Mexican types. I bet that's what it's going to be like. And I got to tell you, the ones that you might want to be a little concerned over are the white supremacist meth heads, which, I got to tell you, populate this area in droves. Yeah, droves. So that is who Trump appeals to. The toothless, right-wing, white supremacist meth head. And the ones that have teeth, I don't know, a lot of them, they're in the Proud Boys. I got to tell you, Proud Boys are not dapper Nazis. By and large, they're led by graybeard bikers types. Yeah, okay, I guess we could call them bikers, because I bet every single one has a hog. Not a Moto Guzzi among any of these Neanderthals. And that's insulting Neanderthals. I actually believe Neanderthals were a much more elevated species and somehow got genocided out because they were scary. Could use a little bit more of that, Neanderthal outlook. The furrowed brow. Or is it a prominent brow? The prominent brow is supposed to be indicative of low intelligence. Maybe not. Anyway, these Proud Boys are not dapper Nazis. They're a bunch of biker types. And they want to rumble. And I'm not talking about revving their loud, oil-leaking hog engines. I'm talking about beating the crap out of people. And they have a hierarchy. They have a structure. They have leaders. And I'm still trying to find the president of the Antifa Club on any college campus in the United States, or anywhere in the world for that matter. You can find Turning Point USA clubs. Hey, Charlie Kirk, you brown shirt. You can find that brown shirt organization on, I got to tell you, every single campus. Right there with the campus Republicans. Trying to find an Antifa chapter with the Trotsky Club. It's not there. Nobody. You can't. It's an idea. All right. It's an ideology. I understand that is a difficult concept to grasp in a mind that has been stunted. I don't know. Lack of oxygen? What happened? Do we blame media? No, I think that maybe we might need to blame each of ourselves individually. Is there systemic racism? Oh, no, there's not. I got to hand it to Wallace. He did ask a pertinent question to Trump that never got answered. What's so wrong with teaching racial, diversity training? Why is that radical? Because white supremacy and bigots have used the scourge tactic of commies. If somebody wants racial equality, it's because the commies are trying to pit us against one another. Yeah, well, they are, and they will use racial divisions against us. So how about we bridge those racial divisions so they can't use it against us? Instead, it's like we can't have racial equality because it's a commie plot. Oh, okay, well, it sounds like it's worked then, hasn't it? That's how idiotic they are. They're turning this country over to Vlad. And then they name the Democratic Party and all Democrats as the true enemy of the people. I cannot tell you how many times I'm called, "You're not an American, you're a Democrat." Really? And I love doing the white entitled thing of bringing up, doing a little bit of name dropping. Like if we are lucky enough to have descended from patriots from the American Revolution, most of us love to bring it up when we get to, and me included. So I always like bringing up being a direct descendant of Israel Putnam of the Continental Army, who was second in command, or, there was a couple of second in commands, let's put it that way, to George Washington in the Continental Army. And Israel Putnam is known to have coined the phrase that breeds, not Bunker Hill, by the way, it was Breeds Hill, just saying. Do not shoot until you see the whites of their eyes. And sometimes I like to embellish that, for the moment. But Israel Putnam is known to have said that. And I'm a descendant of a Revolutionary War hero. So when people say, "Oh, you're not an American," well, in my family, it's an honor to have your progeny named after Israel Putnam. You have to get an okay from the family. And I got the okay from the family to name my late son Israel Putnam. So we take our patriotism quite seriously in this family. And you? Yeah, they just learned about politics when Trump came into office because he gave them the permission to stand back and stand by and then beat the crap out of people that they've always wanted to beat the crap out of. And we have 1 month to start shutting them the F up. Okay? Some of us get to vote right now. In this state, we get our ballots on the 16th of October, and I will be voting early. I used to wait until Election Day because I used to love getting a little dressed up, standing in line in the morning to go vote with my neighbors. But not now. As soon as I get that ballot, it is being filled out. All the down ticket positions, too. That's what's very important. And I'm putting it right in the drop box at the county library. I love the USPS, but I always put it in the drop box at the library just in case. Why would I do it differently now just because of a pandemic? And a hostile takeover from a hostile foreign power. What's on the rest of the menu here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy? A GOP congressman has no problem spewing racism and religious bigotry. Just don't question Trump's Supreme Court nomination's wacky Catholic cult. Don't do it. Some people might wonder if it's legal for Mike Flynn's lawyer to brief Trump on discovery from the case, while others might think it's a national security issue. Yeah, some of us do. And a federal judge is considering holding Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross and the federal government in contempt if they violate her order and stop the census count early. They always talk about law and order, don't they? They are incapable of following the law, and they think that they get to give the orders. 1 month, folks. 1 month to vote these crooks out. After the break, we move to the chef's table where Azerbaijan and Armenia brushed off any suggestion of peace talks. No, going on 4 days of some heavy, dangerous, fatal fighting. And Ukraine marked the 79th anniversary of the Babi Yar massacre, one of the worst mass slaughters of World War II. And that wasn't done by Antifa, by the way. Yeah. You know, it's funny, in a perverse black humor sense, that the Nazis who finally killed the 37,000 Jews in the Babi Yar massacre were told to stand back and stand by until they were given their orders too. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the right-ish of the page is our chat room link, monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly. To the left-ish of the chat room link, monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com is the link to our Patreon page. And as you know, and even if you haven't, the reason we have a Patreon page is because we need money. Why do we need money? Because we pay our bills. We don't skip out on them like one orange-faced sweaty. What was that guy's makeup? Who does that guy's makeup? Man, that looked slimier at the end than it did 90 minutes before. Okay? Yeah, we're not them. We pay our bills. And mostly the reason we pay our bills is because then it allows us to fly under the radar, continue resisting as the founders originally intended, oh, so many decades ago. I'm not talking about when we started, about a decade ago. But we are fulfilling our civic duty because of your generosity. We are in the process of finalizing the purchase of the replacement workhorses that will replace the workhorses that have been broadcasting and working like horses for a little over now 4 years of this almost 10-year run. So your generosity once again has allowed us to continue. Nevertheless, we persist, and we thank you for allowing us to do so. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio, do so at Netroots Radio. Thank you, Tom, for taking care of that. I, of course, take care of at Justice Putnam because I wouldn't put that burden on anybody. Jeez, it's bad enough for me. Anyway, follow me there because I post the show notes and links diary, an integral part to this whole multimedia operation, indeed. And in those show notes and links diary, which I post on Daily Coast about 10 minutes before showtime and then link up on social media, those show notes and links contain the show notes and links so that you know the actual reportage of our, I don't know, Science 800,000 type of newsread. Yeah, we like to sit in front of the screen and make commentary, doesn't everybody? If you would like to follow the show on Twitter, it's easy. Go to @CookbookWest. I don't know. I ended up doing it. If I had left it up to Tom, it would have been easier, wouldn't it have? Darn. And pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, and hopefully Amazon and Audible right quick. And wherever podcasts can be found, you'll find our show and all the others on Netroots Radio too. This first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy is out of the American Independent by Josh Israel. Representative Andy Biggs introduced a resolution yesterday, Tuesday, condemning criticism of Amy Coney Barrett's religious views, but in recent years, he has repeatedly refused to back efforts to counter actual discrimination. Biggs' proposed condemnation alleges that the religious views of Trump's Supreme Court nominee have only been called into question by a small number of Democratic officials, a historian, a podcast co-founder, and songwriter Diane Warren. It asked the House of Representatives to condemn any attempt to impose an unconstitutional test on Barrett and any attempt to disparage her constitutional right to exercise her religious beliefs. Barrett said in her 2017 confirmation hearings that it's never appropriate for a judge to impose that judge's personal convictions, whether they derive from faith or anywhere else, on the law. But she also said in a 2006 law school commencement speech that your legal career is but a means to an end, and the end is building the kingdom of God. And you know that kingdom of God is pretty darn white. Biggs has not always been so eager to condemn discrimination. Earlier this month, he voted against a bipartisan resolution condemning racism and hate crimes against people of Asian descent, which have spiked during the coronavirus pandemic, and Biggs dismissed the sentiment as woke culture on steroids. Excuse me. Let's get back to this article. Last year, he was one of just 23 representatives to vote against a resolution against anti-Semitism and anti-Muslim bigotry. He attacked it as a watered-down resolution that says virtually nothing, while condemning only anti-Semitic rhetoric. His statement made no mention of anti-Muslim hate. Since 2017, Biggs has been a vocal defender of Trump's Muslim ban. Now, this past July, as the House voted to repeal a ban on travel from majority Muslim nations, Biggs claimed the Muslim ban is not a Muslim ban, but a legitimate travel restriction implemented for the safety of this nation. Just do not call Amy Coney Barrett's extremist Catholic cult into question. Eric Tucker of the Associated Press brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. A lawyer for former Trump administration national security advisor, and that would be Michael Flynn, told a judge yesterday, Tuesday, that she recently updated Trump on the case and asked him not to issue a pardon for her client. The attorney, conspiracy-addled nitwit Sidney Powell, was initially reluctant to discuss her conversations with Trump or the White House, saying she believed they were protected by executive privilege. You don't work for them. Okay, but under persistent questioning from U.S. District Judge Emmett Sullivan, she acknowledged having spoken to Trump within the last few weeks to update him and to request that he not pardon Flynn. Well, that's actually, you're not supposed to do that. She not only did not elaborate on the request, but she also ordered the judge to recuse himself because, hey, that's how it works now in law and order. Mike Schneider of the Associated Press brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. A federal judge yesterday, Tuesday, set a revised October 5 date. The U.S. Commerce Department picked to end the 2020 census may violate an order she issued last week that cleared the way for the headcount of every U.S. resident to continue through the end of October. U.S. District Judge Lucy Koh suggested she would be open to considering a motion of contempt against the federal government or a motion saying her order had been violated. Let's see what Wilbur Ross has to say about this. Will he get out of his slippers and finally do something? The mind reels trying to figure out if he will. All right, let's get to our break, and when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Flynn. This week, nothing vast enters the life of mortals without a curse. I'd love to claim credit for that teaser, but in fact it belongs to Sophocles. When I first started thinking about what to say about the social dilemma, I had a conceit in mind, doing a review from the future, maybe from across an international border. I could adopt the demeanor of the Canadian radio voices in A Handmaid's Tale. But then it dawned that there's probably no such escape from what's at issue here, the degradation by social media of democratic values and the underpinnings of Western civilization, ironically by a democratization of access provided by technology that allows for no filters, reference points, or factual hierarchy. If using that conceit, I'd have probably said they were warned, whether by the wonky 2017 film Stare Into the Lights, My Pretties, or Douglas Rushkoff's theoretical volume Siberia, spelled beginning with a CY from the 90s, alarms were sounded. Now that they're flashing red, this doc brings together an assemblage of former tech executives and academics to connect the dots with which we're familiar, data mining, surveillance capitalism, etc., and especially how these mechanisms have come, as noted by Tristan Harris, formerly of Google, to turn the user into the product. How easily this technology has been adapted by those with motives past just financial gain seems to have come as a genuine shock to some of the interviewees, though perhaps it shouldn't have. The politics-money connection isn't new. A particularly effective touch in the social dilemma is an intertwined drama of a family dealing with a teenager's social media addiction between the interviews. Director Jeff Orlowski's last film dealt with climate change. It seems clear that he believes the tipping point on this issue is considerably more immediate. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Flynn. Catch up with us at take2moviereview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Christopher Intagliata. Charles Darwin is most famous for his finches, from whose beaks he gleaned the idea that a single species might radiate into many. But he studied other attributes of birds, too, like the rhythmic sounds some species made during courtship by fluttering, shaking, or rattling their feathers together.
Since Darwin, there has been this fact that birds produce sounds with wings and tails or flight feathers. So there are species of manakins that do these sounds, and there's hummingbirds that do the sounds.
Valentina Gomez-Baumon is an evolutionary biologist and ornithologist at the Field Museum in Chicago. She and her team have now observed that non-vocal sound production phenomenon in another type of bird, the fork-tailed flycatcher. The researchers studied two groups of the birds in South America and recorded the birds making these fluttering sounds with their wings during morning courtship rituals and in combat between males. One of the two flycatcher subspecies is migratory. The other stays put. And by carefully measuring the bird's feathers, the research team found that the migratory birds had longer, thinner feathers, presumably for some aerodynamic advantage. But that altered feather shape also meant the bird's fluttering produced a different frequency. Compare the migratory bird's flutter to the stationary bird's.
So basically what we think is that because of loss of migration, pressures for flight may influence the shape of the individual feathers to the point where the sound quality changes as well.
The details are in the journal Integrative and Comparative Biology. Gomez-Baumon says they're still not certain what role the sounds play in day-to-day flycatcher life, if the birds do indeed even pay attention to them. But she suspects the sounds may have some cultural importance to the birds, in which case, she says, the communication differences between the migratory and non-migratory birds could further divide the two types of birds, or in other words, give rise to the origin of species. Thanks for listening. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Christopher Intagliata.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Welcome to A Cup of Health with CDC, a weekly feature of the MMWR, the Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report. I'm your host, Dr. Robert Gaines. As fall turns to winter, the flu season will be upon us in force. The best way to avoid influenza is to get immunized. Dr. Joe Brazee is a researcher with CDC's National Center for Immunization and Respiratory Diseases. He's joining us today to discuss the importance of getting the flu vaccine. Welcome to the show, Joe.
Thank you.
Joe, let's start with how long does the flu season last?
In general, flu seasons will last for several months in the United States at the national level. Each year it begins in the fall, usually peaks between January and March, and ends in the spring. But the timing of flu season is unpredictable, especially at the local level. So because we can't tell for sure when it will start, when it will peak, and when it will end in every community, we want to make sure that people get vaccinated as early as possible when the flu vaccines become available in the late summer and early fall.
Well, who should get vaccinated?
Everyone 6 months of age and older should get vaccinated against the flu each and every year. This is especially important for people at high risk of complications or severe flu if they get infected.
Which groups are at higher risk for complications from the flu?
Well, some people are at especially higher risk for severe flu or complications. These are people who are very young, like kids under 5 years of age, anybody 65 years and older, and people with underlying health disorders like heart disease, lung disease, kidney disease, or diseases of the immune system, and pregnant women.
Joe, how effective is the vaccine for preventing flu?
Well, vaccine is the single best way to protect you and your family from the flu each year. Most years, the vaccine reduces a person's chance of getting the flu and complications from the flu by about 50 to 70%. But how well it works can vary from season to season and by person. So remember that vaccine is one of 3 ways you can protect yourself against the flu. The other ones are good hygiene, like hand washing, covering your cough, staying home when you're sick, and finally medications. There are medications that your doctor can prescribe to treat the flu if you get it.
Are there any side effects from getting vaccinated?
Well, there are 2 types of flu vaccines. First, the shots. The most common side effects with the flu shots are soreness or redness in your arm for a day or 2 after getting the vaccine. The nasal spray vaccines can cause runny nose or congestion or low-grade fever in some people for, again, about a day or 2 after getting the vaccine. So these side effects are mild compared with the disease itself, which causes hundreds of thousands of hospitalizations and tens of thousands of deaths each year in the United States. Remember that the vaccine is the safest and most effective way to prevent flu each and every year.
Joe, where can listeners get more information about the flu vaccine?
We'll go to cdc.gov/flu.
Thanks, Joe. I've been talking today with CDC's Dr. Joe Brazee about the annual flu vaccine. Remember, everyone 6 months and older should be vaccinated. To get your annual flu vaccine, see your healthcare provider or go to a pharmacy, grocery store, or clinic in your area. If you get influenza, talk with your healthcare provider right away about antiviral medication. Until next time, be well. This is Dr. Robert Gaines for A Cup of Health with CDC.
For the most accurate health information, visit www.cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
President Trump has refused to commit to a peaceful transfer of power. Now what?
I'm Tom Hartman, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute with ACLU attorney Bill Newman.
Listen to Trump's Orwellian logic. He repeats that he obviously will win the election. The only way he could lose is if the election is rigged. He would abide by the results of a fair election, but the only election that would be fair is one that he wins. Trump's later modification of his position is in some ways even more chilling. He asserted with certainty that the election will be decided by the Supreme Court, thereby promising that if he is not pronounced the winner, he'll sue, and that he'll win his lawsuit. Trump also made clear that one big reason to push his Supreme Court nominee to Senate confirmation is so that he can feel confident that the court, at least 5-4, will reinstall him as president when his challenge to the election results ends up before the 9 justices. In other words, the election is not so much about the more than 150 million popular votes and the divvying up of the 538 electoral college votes, but rather about 9 votes, the 9 Supreme Court justices' votes. Of course, the popular vote and the reported electoral college vote actually really do matter. The bigger Trump's loss, if he loses, the more implausible his challenge will appear to the judges and justices who will be called upon to rule on his lawsuit to decide who will be the president as of January 20th, 2021.
The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU because democracy and advocacy begin with you, and freedom can't defend itself.
Suddenly, social distancing is our new national etiquette, abruptly supplanting handshakes, hugs, gatherings, and other forms of ingrained communal behavior by us humans. Awkward, disconcerting, isolating. Yet, as we frantically scramble to deter the health and economic ravages of COVID-19, we might benefit by pondering a self-inflicted cause of the contagion's disastrous spread: social distancing. For some 40 years, American corporations and governments have imposed economic, political, and social policies to distance the financial fortunes of the wealthy few from the well-being of the workaday majority. Consider the interrelationship of multimillionaires with the unseen kitchen staff of restaurants where they dine. To further enrich themselves, such multimillionaires have forced low-wage policies on food preparers, denied health coverage for them, and lobbied to kill proposals to provide paid sick leave. So, a kitchen worker coughs because he or she is infected with coronavirus, but doesn't know it, since the worker has no health care coverage for testing. Even though running a fever, the staffer must come to work or lose the job. A few days later, a multimillionaire sneezes because, well, COVID-19 doesn't distinguish between rich and poor. The very proposals that plutocrats have been blocking for years, like living wages, Medicare for all, home health care, and others, are exactly what a sane government would adopt to avoid the consequences of inequality that now confronts every American. This is Jim Hightower saying the actual disease that's forcing social distancing on our country is the widening separation of rich elites from the rest of us, and the cure is a national push for renewed social cohesiveness. The catastrophic spread of COVID-19 reveals a truth we too often deny. We are a species of completely interdependent beings.
If you'd like more of Jim Hightower's real populism, check out the Hightower Lowdown. Jim's monthly newsletter gives you the real lowdown on which corporations, by name, are doing what to the middle class, our environment, and our democracy. Each month, the Hightower Lowdown brings you facts you didn't know, along with actions you can take to fight back. It also comes with a sense of humor. Hightower believes we can fight the gods and still have fun. Plus, get this, it's cheap. Only $15 brings you 12 issues a year. For real populism, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1919. That was the day that began the Elaine Massacre. The massacre took place in Arkansas, where more than 100 black farmers and sharecroppers were gunned down for daring to organize their labor. The year before, a black farmer by the name of Robert L. Hill had founded the Progressive Farmers and Household Union of America. Union members pooled their money to purchase land. They also hired a lawyer to sue planters who did not give black tenant cotton farmers their fair share of the profits. The group grew in membership in the Arkansas Delta region, including near the town of Elaine in Phillips County. But white landowners would not allow this challenge to their power. Armed white militias came to a church where the union was holding a meeting. The black attendees were also armed. Gunfire broke out. In response, white posses and federal troops unleashed a wave of terror across Phillips County. Hundreds of black residents were arrested. At least 100 black Arkansans were killed. Some estimates of those murdered is considerably higher. 5 white people also died. 122 black men and women were charged with murder. 12 were given the death sentence. No white vigilante, however, was ever charged. The convicted African Americans appealed their cases. One appeal for 6 of the defendants went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, where it was overturned in a landmark ruling. The year of 1919 was one of the deadliest years of violence against African Americans in U.S. history. Civil rights activist James Weldon Johnson called those bloody months the Red Summer. 26 race riots left thousands of African Americans homeless and hundreds dead, from Chicago to Washington, D.C. to Omaha.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River and the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 52 degrees Fahrenheit. We're going to be nearly the same temperature as yesterday, about 96 to 98. Plenty of sunshine, winds light and variable. Clear skies tonight with lows in the mid-50s, winds light and variable. And sunny tomorrow with highs around 97, 98, 99, somewhere around there. Winds will be light and variable. On a more serious note, confirmed coronavirus cases here in Jackson County in the southern Oregon region of Oregon now have spiked to 1,171 with 5 confirmed deceased. Ragweed pollen is rated high right outside the window here at the mothership, and the air quality index for the region is now in the moderate range, which is not healthy for those with breathing difficulties, at 82 parts per million, and the daytime UV index is also moderate at 5. Barometric pressure is holding steady at 30.15 inches. Visibility is at 9 miles, and relative humidity is at 78%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. London is 63 with a rain shower. Paris is 67 and cloudy. Rome is 72 and partly cloudy. Kyiv, we're still calling it that. Kyiv is 54 with a light rain. Kabul is 65 and mostly cloudy. Hong Kong is 75 with light rain and thunder. Tokyo is 68 and cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 60 and partly cloudy. San Francisco, California is 56 and mostly cloudy with a smoke advisory. And New York, New York is 62, mostly cloudy. And they have some sort of, a wind advisory. Do take care. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. Yvette Demorian of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Leaders of Azerbaijan and Armenia brushed off suggestions of peace talks, accusing each other of obstructing negotiations over the separatist territory of Nagorno-Karabakh, with dozens killed and injured in 3 days of heavy fighting going on 4 now. In the latest incident, Armenia said one of its warplanes was shot down by a fighter jet from Azerbaijan's ally Turkey, killing the pilot in what would be a major escalation of the violence. Both Turkey and Azerbaijan denied it. The international community is calling for talks to end the decades-old conflict between the two former Soviet republics in the Caucasus Mountains region, following a flare-up of violence this week. It centers on Nagorno-Karabakh, a region that lies within Azerbaijan, but has been under the control of ethnic Armenian forces backed by the Armenian government since 1994, at the end of a separatist war.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière, la promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Anonymous worker bees at the Associated Press bring us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Ukraine yesterday, Tuesday, marked the 79th anniversary of the Babi Yar massacre, one of the most infamous mass slaughters of World War II. Babi Yar, a ravine in the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv, is where 34,000 Jews were killed within 48 hours in 1941, when the city was under Nazi occupation. The killing was carried out by SS troops along with local collaborators. Ukrainian President Zelensky visited the Babi Yar monument and took part in a ceremony commemorating the anniversary of the tragedy. After the ceremony, Ukraine's Minister of Culture and World Jewish Congress President Lauder, that's Tachenko and Lauder, signed a memorandum of understanding and cooperation between the Ukrainian government and the Babi Yar Holocaust Memorial Center. The center, where Lauder is a member of the board, plans to open a museum in Kyiv dedicated to the tragedy and unveil it in 2025 to 2026. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day. But you do know Netroots Radio will broadcast on, and we're going to meet up tomorrow for Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we'll meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.